My father looked at me with eyes colder than the December snow falling outside and said, "Pack your things. You have 1 hour." My mother didn't even look up from her wine glass. My sister Vanessa leaned against the marble doorway, that satisfied smirk spreading across her face like she'd just won the lottery. Christmas Eve. They chose Christmas Eve to throw me out like garbage. I stood there in the foyer of the house I grew up in, the house decorated with thousands of dollars worth of lights and ornaments, and realized I meant absolutely nothing to these people. 1 hour later, I was sitting on a frozen park bench with nothing but a backpack, watching my breath form clouds in the freezing air. That's when I saw her. A woman, barefoot and shivering, her skin so pale she looked like she might not survive the night. I didn't think. I just took off my winter jacket, the only real protection I had against the cold, and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered one sentence before disappearing into the fog. 3 minutes later, a convoy of luxury vehicles surrounded that park bench, and that same woman stepped out wearing a $1,000 coat and diamonds that caught the streetlight like stars. And what she said next changed absolutely everything. "I'm Wendy Harper, and this is the story of how the worst night of my life became the moment everything finally made sense. Let me take you back 6 hours before that park bench, because you need to understand exactly how I ended up there. You need to understand the full scope of the cruelty, the calculation, the absolute coldness of what my family did to me. It was Christmas Eve morning, and I'd come home for the holidays like I did every year. I'd been working in Chicago for the past 4 years, building a career in advertising, working 60-hour weeks, clawing my way up from junior copywriter to creative director. I was proud of what I'd built. Proud of doing it on my own, without my family's money or connections. My family is wealthy. Real wealth. Old money from my grandfather's pharmaceutical empire. My father had expanded it, my mother came from her own wealthy family, and they lived in a world where everything was about image, status, and maintaining appearances. I'd never fit into that world. I'd tried, desperately, for most of my life. But I wanted to work, to create, to build something that was mine. My parents saw that as rebellion. As rejection of them and everything they valued. They wanted me to marry well, join the right clubs, attend the right charity galas. Actually working for a living, especially in something as common as advertising, was beneath the Harper family standards. My sister Vanessa, though? She was perfect in their eyes. She'd married a hedge fund manager, produced 2 grandchildren, spent her days shopping and planning fundraiser luncheons. She was everything they wanted in a daughter. And she absolutely hated that I existed. I arrived at the house around 10 in the morning, carrying gifts I'd carefully selected and wrapped, hoping maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year they'd see me, actually see me, and recognize that I was successful and happy in my own way. The house looked like something from a magazine spread. Decorator-perfect Christmas tree, professional lighting, catered food being prepared for the evening's dinner party they were hosting. 75 guests expected, all from their wealthy social circle. My mother greeted me with an air kiss that didn't touch my cheek. "Wendy. You're here." Not glad to see me, not excited, just acknowledgement of my presence like I was a delivery she'd been expecting. My father was in his study. He grunted hello without looking up from his phone. Vanessa was in the living room with her husband Bradley and their kids. She looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Still shopping off the rack, I see," she said, eyeing my coat. It was a nice coat, one I'd saved up for, but it wasn't designer and she knew it. "Still spending someone else's money, I see," I replied, unable to help myself. Her entire lifestyle was funded by Bradley's income. She'd never worked a day in her life. Her eyes narrowed. At least I married well instead of embarrassing the family by working in some middle-class job. I should have left then. Should have recognized the hostility and just gone back to Chicago. But some stupid part of me still hoped for connection, for acceptance, for one Christmas where they treated me like I mattered. The day progressed tensely. I helped in the kitchen even though the caterers clearly didn't want or need my assistance. I played with my niece and nephew, who barely knew me since Vanessa limited my access to them. I tried making conversation with my parents, who responded with monosyllables and disinterest. By 4 in the afternoon, guests started arriving for the evening party. I'd retreated to my old bedroom, feeling out of place in my own family home. That's when Vanessa came in without knocking. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "About what?" "About you leaving. Tonight. Before dinner." I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" "Mom and Dad don't want you here, Wendy. You make them uncomfortable. You're a constant reminder that they failed with one of their children. Looking at you ruins their evening." The words hit like physical blows. "They said that?" "They don't have to say it. I know them. And I know you being here makes everything harder for them. So I'm asking you, as your sister, to just leave quietly. Don't make a scene. Just go. It's Christmas Eve, Vanessa. I came home for Christmas. And now you can leave. You have your own life in Chicago, your own little apartment, your own little job. Go back to that. This isn't your world anymore. It hasn't been for years." The cruelty was so casual, so matter of fact. Like she was asking me to pass the salt instead of telling me I wasn't wanted at Christmas. "No," I said firmly. "I was invited. I'm staying." Her expression darkened. "Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you." She left, and I sat there shaking with anger and hurt, trying to decide what to do. I should have packed then. Should have left on my own terms. But stubbornness kept me there. The party started at 6. I came downstairs dressed in my best outfit, trying to blend in, trying to be invisible. For about an hour, it worked. I stood in corners, made polite small talk with guests who didn't really care who I was, drank champagne I didn't want. Then my father stood up to make a toast. He thanked everyone for coming, talked about the year's successes, talked about family. He mentioned Vanessa and Bradley and the grandchildren. Talked about my mother's charity work. Never mentioned my name. Not once. I felt tears burning behind my eyes but refused to let them fall. Several guests who knew I existed gave me pitying looks, which somehow made it worse. After the toast, I escaped to the kitchen for air. That's where my mother found me. "Wendy, we need to discuss something." "What now?" I was so tired. So emotionally exhausted. "Your father and I have decided it would be best if you didn't spend the night here. In fact, it would be best if you left now." I couldn't have heard that correctly. "You're asking me to leave? On Christmas Eve? In the middle of your party?" "We're not asking." My father had appeared behind her, his face set in that stern expression I remembered from childhood. "We're telling you. You don't belong here anymore, Wendy. You've made that clear with your choices. We've tried to accept your lifestyle, your career, your rejection of everything we value. But we're tired of pretending. We don't want you here." The room started spinning. "This is my home. I grew up here." "This is our home," my mother corrected coldly. "You're an adult with your own residence. Go there." "It's Christmas," I whispered, my voice breaking. "It's our Christmas," my father said. "And we want to enjoy it without the tension your presence creates. Pack your things. You have 1 hour." They walked away. Just turned and walked back to their party like they hadn't just shattered their daughter's heart on Christmas Eve. I stood there in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Then Vanessa appeared, and the look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She'd orchestrated this. Somehow, she'd convinced our parents to do this. "You did this," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "I told you to leave quietly," she said with a shrug. "You didn't listen." "So yes, I talked to them. I told them how uncomfortable you make everyone, How you don't fit in, how embarrassing it is to have a daughter working in advertising like some common middle-class person. I told them that if they really loved me and wanted me to be happy, they'd stop forcing me to pretend we're a happy family when we're not. I'm your sister. You're a stranger who happens to share my DNA, she said, her voice ice cold. We have nothing in common, Wendy. We never did. You were always the odd one out, the one who didn't belong. I'm just finally making everyone acknowledge it. She smiled then, a satisfied, cruel smile that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Merry Christmas, Wendy. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I wanted to scream, to fight, to make them see how wrong this was. But the humiliation, the pain, the absolute devastation was paralyzing. I went upstairs to my old bedroom and packed my backpack with the few belongings I'd brought. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely zip it closed. When I came back downstairs, the party was still going. Christmas music playing, people laughing, champagne flowing. My parents didn't even look at me as I walked toward the door. Vanessa watched from across the room, that smug smile never leaving her face. I walked out into the December cold with nothing but a backpack and the winter coat I was wearing. No car, they'd driven me from the airport. No hotel reservation, everywhere was booked for Christmas. No friends nearby, I'd moved away years ago. I started walking, no destination in mind, just walking to keep moving, to keep from falling apart completely. The temperature was dropping, snow starting to fall harder, and I had nowhere to go. Eventually I ended up in Riverside Park, a place I'd played in as a child. There was a bench overlooking the frozen pond, covered in snow. I sat down, too exhausted to walk anymore, too numb to cry. That's when the full weight of what had happened hit me. My family had thrown me away. On Christmas Eve. Like I was nothing. Like I'd never mattered. All those years of trying to earn their love, trying to be good enough, trying to make them proud even if it was in my own way instead of theirs. It had all been pointless. They didn't love me. They probably never had. I was just an obligation they'd finally decided they were done with. I sat there on that frozen bench, watching the snow fall, wondering what I was going to do. I had some money in my bank account, but everything was closed for Christmas. I couldn't even get a hotel room tonight. I could try calling colleagues in Chicago, but involving them in this humiliation felt impossible. The cold was starting to seep through my coat, through my clothes, into my bones. I was shivering uncontrollably. But I couldn't seem to make myself move. That's when I saw her. A woman, walking through the park in the snow. No coat. No shoes. Just a thin dress that looked like it had been white once but was now gray with dirt and wear. Her skin was so pale it was almost translucent, her lips blue with cold. She was shivering violently, her arms wrapped around herself. Something about seeing her, seeing someone worse off than me, snapped me out of my paralysis. I stood up, my legs stiff with cold, and called out to her. Hey! Are you okay? She turned toward me, and I saw she was younger than I'd initially thought, maybe late 20s. Her eyes were huge in her thin face, dark circles beneath them. I'm fine, she said, but her voice was weak and her shivering betrayed her words. You're freezing, I said, walking toward her. Where's your coat? Don't have one. She tried to smile but her teeth were chattering too hard. I didn't think about it. I just took off my winter coat, the warm, expensive coat I'd saved up to buy, and draped it around her shoulders. It was the only protection I had against the cold, but she needed it more than I did. She looked at me in shock. What are you doing? You'll freeze. I'll be okay, I lied. Please, take it. You need it more than I do. Tears filled her eyes. Why? Why would you do this for a stranger? Because you're cold and I can help. It was that simple. My family had just proven that kindness and compassion meant nothing to them, but that didn't mean I had to become like them. If anything, it made me more determined to be different. She pulled the coat tighter around herself, and some color started returning to her face. "Kindness like yours is a rare treasure in this world," she said softly. "Rarer than you know." "What's your name?" I asked. "Eleanor," she said. "Eleanor Calloway." "I'm Wendy Harper." "Are you going to be okay? Do you need help getting somewhere?" "I'll be fine now, thanks to you." She reached out and squeezed my hand, and despite her freezing skin, there was strength in her grip. "Thank you, Wendy Harper. You've given me more than just warmth tonight." Before I could ask what she meant, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the swirling snow and fog. I stood there, now without a coat, the cold immediately cutting through my sweater. But I felt something I hadn't felt since that morning. Something like purpose. I went back to the bench, trying to figure out my next move. I'd given away my coat, which was probably stupid, but I couldn't regret it. That woman had needed it more than I did. I'd been sitting there maybe 3 minutes when I heard the cars. Multiple engines, the crunch of expensive tires on snow, the soft closing of luxury vehicle doors. I looked up to see a convoy of black SUVs and sedans surrounding the park area where I sat. My first thought was that something was wrong, maybe police or security. Then the doors opened and people in dark suits stepped out. And finally, from the center vehicle, she emerged. Eleanor. But not the freezing, pale woman I'd just given my coat to. This Eleanor wore an elegant black wool coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Heels that clicked on the pavement. Perfectly styled hair. And diamonds, actual diamonds, glittering at her throat and wrists. She walked toward me with complete confidence, and I sat there frozen in confusion and shock. "Hello again, Wendy," she said, her voice stronger now, authoritative. "I don't understand," I managed. "What's happening?" She smiled, and it was warm but also knowing, like she could see right through me to every hurt and hope I carried. "I've been watching you tonight. I saw you get thrown out of that house. I saw you wandering lost and heartbroken. And I wanted to see what kind of person you really were when you had nothing left to lose." You were testing me?" "In a way. I needed to know if you were who I thought you were. If your kindness was real or just performance." "Who are you?" I whispered. "Eleanor Calloway. Founder and CEO of the Calloway Foundation. We manage philanthropic projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. We find people who've been discarded by society and give them second chances. We fund programs for the forgotten, the abandoned, the ones nobody else will help." My mind was reeling. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need someone to help me run it. Someone who understands what it feels like to be thrown away. Someone who has genuine compassion even when they have every reason to be bitter. Someone who would give their only coat to a freezing stranger even though they have nowhere to go themselves." She extended her hand to me. "I'm offering you a position, Wendy Harper. An apprenticeship. You'll learn every aspect of running the foundation. It will be grueling. You'll be tested constantly. The hours will be brutal and the responsibility enormous. But if you succeed, if you prove you have what it takes, I'll make you my successor. The foundation will be yours to run." I stared at her hand, unable to process what was happening. This had to be a dream. People don't get rescued by mysterious billionaires on Christmas Eve. Life doesn't work that way. "Why me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Because in the 10 years I've been doing this test, approaching people in crisis and seeing how they respond, you're only the third person who's given away their coat. And you're the first who did it on the same night they'd been abandoned by their own family. You had every reason to be selfish, to protect yourself. Instead, you chose compassion." Tears were streaming down my face now, hot against my frozen cheeks. "What do I have to do?" "Come with me. Right now. Leave this life behind and step into a new one. It won't be easy, and it won't fix the pain your family caused. But it will give you purpose. It will give you a way to transform your suffering into something that helps others who are suffering too. I looked back toward the direction of my parents' house, that mansion full of people who didn't care about me, a family that had discarded me like trash. Then I looked at Eleanor, this stranger offering me a lifeline when I desperately needed one. If you've ever been abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you, if you've ever wondered if kindness matters when the world is cruel, stay with me because what happens next will show you that sometimes the worst moments become doorways to something you never could have imagined. I took her hand. Yes. I'll come with you. Eleanor's smile was genuine now, reaching her eyes. Good. Let's get you somewhere warm first. Then we'll talk about everything else. She led me to one of the vehicles, and the warmth inside felt like heaven after the freezing bench. Someone handed me a blanket and hot coffee. As we drove away from that park, away from the neighborhood where I'd grown up, I felt something strange. Not happiness, not yet. But relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for 30 years and could finally exhale. We went to Eleanor's penthouse, a space that was elegant but not ostentatious. She gave me a guest room and told me to rest, that we'd talk in the morning. I barely slept. Too much adrenaline, too much confusion, too much pain still radiating through my chest every time I thought about my family. But there was also something else. A tiny seed of hope that maybe, just maybe, this nightmare had a purpose. The next morning, Christmas Day, Eleanor and I sat down over breakfast and she explained everything. The Callaway Foundation, how she'd built it after her own experience with family abandonment, how she'd made it her life's work to help people who'd been thrown away by society. I was you, 20 years ago, she said. Disowned by my family, left with nothing. A stranger helped me, gave me a chance, and I built this foundation to pay that forward. Now I'm old enough that I need to think about succession. I need someone who truly understands our mission. Someone who's lived it. Over the next few months, I threw myself into the apprenticeship. It was exactly as brutal as Eleanor had warned. I learned nonprofit law, grant management, project oversight, donor relations. I worked 16-hour days, studied late into the night, was tested on everything constantly. But I also found meaning I'd never had in advertising. Every project we funded helped real people facing real crises. Women escaping domestic violence. Homeless youth getting second chances. Elderly people abandoned by their families getting care and companionship. I was good at it. Really good. The same skills I'd used in advertising, understanding people's stories and communicating them effectively, translated perfectly to philanthropic work. Within 6 months, I was managing major projects on my own. Within a year, donors were specifically requesting to work with me. I didn't contact my family. They didn't contact me. It was like I'd been erased from their lives, which was apparently what they wanted. Then, 18 months after that Christmas Eve, everything changed again. Vanessa called me. I almost didn't answer, the number still saved in my phone even though I'd never used it. But curiosity made me pick up. Wendy? It's Vanessa. I need your help. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just I need your help. What do you want? My voice was cold. It's Bradley. His fund collapsed. We've lost everything. The house is in foreclosure. We're drowning in debt. I thought. I heard you're working for some foundation now. I thought maybe you could help us. A loan or a grant or something. The audacity was breathtaking. They'd thrown me out on Christmas Eve, hadn't spoken to me in 18 months, and now she wanted money. No, I said simply. What? No. I'm not giving you money. Figure it out yourself. Wendy, we're family. You can't just abandon us when we need you. The laugh that escaped me was bitter and harsh. Abandon you? Like you abandoned me on Christmas Eve? Like Mom and Dad threw me out because I embarrassed them? That kind of abandonment? That was different. We're in real trouble here. We might lose everything. I lost everything that night. My family. My sense of belonging. Everything I thought I could count on. And you smiled. You were happy about it. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I was wrong. But we need help now. Please. I'll tell you what I'll do, I said, surprising myself. The foundation has resources for families in financial crisis. Debt counseling, job training, budgeting help. I'll connect you with those services. But I'm not giving you money. You need to actually fix your problems, not just have someone else solve them for you. That's not enough. We need real help. That is real help. It's just not easy help. Take it or don't. Your choice. She hung up on me. A week later, my mother called. Then my father. Same requests, same entitlement, same lack of real remorse. I gave them all the same answer. Then Vanessa did something I should have expected but didn't. She went to social media, posting a long rant about how her cruel sister had become wealthy working for a foundation but refused to help her own family in crisis. She painted me as heartless, greedy, vindictive. Some people believed her. But many more didn't. Because by then, I had my own reputation. Articles had been written about the foundation's work, about the projects I'd led. People who knew me, knew the real story. Someone found out about me being kicked out on Christmas Eve. I don't know who told them, but the story got out. And suddenly the narrative shifted. Vanessa's post got ratioed hard, with hundreds of comments pointing out the hypocrisy of abandoning your sister then demanding money when you need it. She deleted everything and stopped contacting me. My parents sent one final letter asking me to reconsider. I didn't respond. 3 months ago, Eleanor officially announced me as her successor. I'm now the executive director of the Callaway Foundation, managing a budget of over $300 million, overseeing programs across the country. Last week, we opened a new shelter for people experiencing family abandonment specifically around the holidays. A safe place for those who've been kicked out, disowned, or rejected by the people who were supposed to love them. At the opening, I gave a speech. I told my story, the whole story, about Christmas Eve and the park bench and Eleanor's test. About how the worst night of my life became the moment that set me on the path to finding my real purpose. My family was not in attendance. I didn't invite them. But I heard later that Vanessa saw the video online. Someone told me she cried. I don't know if I believe that, and I don't particularly care. I've processed a lot of the pain with therapy, which Eleanor insisted on as part of my development. I've learned that my family's inability to love me wasn't about my worth, it was about their limitations. I've learned that chosen family can be more real than biological family. I've learned that kindness isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing we can offer in a cruel world. Do I still hurt sometimes? Yes. There are moments when I see functional families and feel that ache of what I never had. Christmas can still be hard, even though I spend it now at the shelter, helping others get through their own family crises. But I also have something I never had when I was trying to earn my family's approval. Peace. Purpose. A sense that my life matters and makes a difference. That woman I saw in the park, the one I gave my coat to, she wasn't just Eleanor testing me. She was a mirror showing me who I wanted to be. Someone who helps even when it costs them something. Someone who chooses compassion even when they have every reason to choose bitterness. My family taught me what not to be. Eleanor taught me what I could become. And that freezing Christmas Eve, as terrible as it was, became the moment I stopped living for people who would never value me and started living for something bigger than their approval. I still have that backpack, the one I carried out of my parents' house that night. It sits in my office as a reminder of where I started. Sometimes when I'm having a hard day, when the weight of running the foundation feels overwhelming, I look at it and remember that I've survived worse than a difficult meeting or a challenging donor. I survived being abandoned by everyone I thought I could count on. I survived that frozen park bench with nowhere to go. I survived giving away my last protection against the cold because someone else needed it more. And not only did I survive, I built something meaningful from the ashes of that pain. That's what I want anyone listening to understand. Your family's rejection doesn't define your worth. Their inability to love you properly isn't a reflection of your value. Sometimes the people who are supposed to cherish you are too broken themselves to do it. And when you're left with nothing, when you're sitting on your own version of that frozen park bench wondering how you'll survive, the choice you make in that moment matters. You can let bitterness consume you, or you can choose to be the person who gives their coat away even when they have nothing left. I chose compassion. And it saved my life in ways I never could have predicted. Eleanor gave me my coat back, by the way. The next morning, Christmas Day, it was cleaned and pressed and hanging in my guest room. She'd never needed it, of course. She'd needed to see what I would do. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd walked past her, if I'd kept my coat and protected myself instead of helping. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have this life, this purpose, this family I've chosen and built around me. One act of kindness in my darkest moment changed everything. Not because it earned me a reward, though it did. But because it reminded me of who I was beneath the pain and rejection. Someone who still believed in helping others even when I'd been hurt. Someone who still had compassion even when I'd been shown cruelty. That's who I choose to be, every day. Not because my biological family deserves it, they don't. But because the world needs more people who choose kindness over bitterness. Who choose to help instead of hurt. Who give their coats away even when they're freezing too.